Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. Amma ba'd. Last time I talked about in my video about how nothing can happen by chance. If you believe that life happened by chance, the earth forming by chance, everything just happened randomly, it is simply absurd. And I said something about talking about life and its complexity. When you say life happened on earth by chance, that is so absurd that even if a person says that a boat was made by a tornado, that even makes more sense. So why is that? So many of us don't really know what a life looks like. Many of us, when we look at a person, we see the person just the way that person is. But you have to understand that we as human beings, we are made out of trillions, over trillions of cells. That is what we are made out of. But that is not what we are talking about. We have to go simpler. We have to go into what the scientists have to say. And that is how the first cell came to be. The scientists say that the first cell came in one of two ways. There are other theories that they want to say, but two of the theories are most famous out there. One is abiogenesis, which is that from chemicals, they randomly came together and emerged the first cell, the building block of life. And the second one is panspermia, that life actually didn't start on earth, it came from somewhere else from the universe. We do not know, we have no idea. So why is that? Why is this going on? Why is there a huge debate about what the first life was, or like where the first life came from? The reason is it doesn't make sense. But you still have to give an explanation when you do not believe in God. And the explanation is that chemicals came and formed the life. Now, if you think about a life, one cell becoming another cell, what you need is DNA. And the DNA, then what happens is the DNA codes for every single thing in the cell. It makes the proteins, the building blocks of the cell itself. Now, the thing is that what is the chance of a protein being made by just chemicals? You see an experiment done by Yuri Miller in the mid of 20th century. What he did was basically did an experiment with some gases that he thought was in the primitive earth, and he put electricity through the gases, and then he found amino acids being made. Amino acids are basically what makes the protein, and there are 20 protein making amino acids. He did not find protein, he found amino acids. Now, if you want to make a protein, what do you need? A protein, a really small length protein is about, for example, an average length, really short length, active protein would be like, for example, 150 amino acid length. There are going to be 150 amino acids, one by one. You want to make it by chance, the math will look like this. There are 20 different amino acids that you have. So in each step you can have one amino acid out of the 20. So 1 divided by 20. So if you want to make 150 chain length protein, the chances would be 1 divided by 20 to the power 150, which is almost like 10 to the power 195. The chances are so low meaning you have 1 divided by 10, and after 10 you have another 194 zeros after that. If you want to do that math on a calculator, it's gonna give you a 0, almost like, or just gonna give you a math error. And that is not just it. From each amino acid that you can form by random chemicals, the amino acids can be in the nature in 2 forms, in 2 isomers. One is L left isomers and one is right isomers. And only the left isomers can make and fold protein. The amino acids all have to be left isomers. And then you have another situation. So with the L isomers, the chances being 1 divided by 2 and to the power 150, which is basically 10 to the power 45. And then you have another issue, that is each amino acid has to be binded by polypeptide bond. And each bond being polypeptide, the chances are half. So again, you have almost, to make the math easier, although it's going to be 1 divided by 2 to the power 149, but to make the math easier is basically, imagine 10 to the power, like 1 divided by 2 to the power 150, which is going to be 10 to the power 45. And if you multiple that all that up to find the actual chances of that happening, you're going to find 10 to the power 285. 1 divided by 10, and after that you have 284 zeros. That is how thin your chances are to have just a protein. And you might be saying, but yeah, if a DNA can be formed, we can just have protein. The DNA will code for proteins. Yes, that is true. But guess what? The DNA, if you can make a DNA with chemicals randomly, suppose you can make it, although the chances are low, that is never gonna code for protein. Why? Because you need protein, which is basically the DNA being encoded into protein. What you need enzymes, you need ribosome, you need many other things that are in the cell, and those are not DNA, those are proteins. So you are basically, what is going on is that the chemical somehow made the DNA, made the protein, the enzymes and everything, ribosome, cytoplasm, every single thing, and it also got encapsulated inside a lipid bilayer. How did that happen? No one knows. It doesn't make sense. It cannot happen. Why? Because the odds that I talked about, the math is 1 divided by 10 to the power 285. There is only about 10 to the power 139 events since Big Bang. There is only about 10 to the power 16 seconds since Big Bang. And there is only 10 to the power 80 elementary particles. Every single particles combined, proton, electron, neutron, everything combined, 10 to the power 80 in the whole universe. And we are talking about one protein being made by chance. The odds are 1 divided by 10 to the power 285. The chances are almost none. And because of that, what happens is, some scientists, they claim that, you know what, life came from somewhere else in the universe. You know, by meteorites, the life came, the bacteria came, and basically they started evolving and life happened on Earth. It flourished. Where in universe other than Earth did you find life? You're never gonna find that. And you didn't really find that. Although you didn't find that, you are claiming that. Why? Because you want to dodge the question of where life came from. How did life come from? You're talking about evolution. Most scientists, they're talking about evolution and saying, see, evolution happened. You know, things are changing. Animals, they're changing. So therefore, God doesn't exist. But what kind of absurdity is that? You are giving examples of life changing. For example, you have influenza, you have coronavirus that you had, and new strains of coronavirus coming, that the vaccination that you're getting is not very effective for the new strains, and now you have to get boosters every 6 months or something. Same thing for influenza, you have to get flu shot every year. Why? Because the influenza virus, it is changing. It is changing to the environment, changing to the vaccination that you are getting. It is always changing. So you're saying, see, evolution happening. Yes, it is changing. But you see, because something is changing, why does it have to be that God doesn't exist? We know for something that, suppose if you are a Muslim, you believe in the Quran. God says in the Quran that Nuh alayhi salam, he called people towards Allah for over 950 years, meaning he survived more than that. You know that early people, according to Islam, Adam alayhi salam and others, they used to be very tall. They were over 60 cubits tall. They were so tall. And their lifespan was 1,000 years or so. And now people are not that tall. People are not, they don't live that much. Literally, you can see God is talking about that life changes. Even human beings, their lifespan and size, everything changes. Who changes that? We believe God does it. We don't. God does. They don't. Suppose you have a woman is pregnant and the baby is growing inside the woman. Does the woman have any control over how the baby will grow? The woman doesn't have any control. Does the fetus have any control how he or she would grow up? That doesn't have any control. So what is going on? How is that happening? You see, we don't believe in random chances. We believe that God made the first cell, and God created the first cell in a way so that it will do change to the environment. But changing in the environment doesn't make God doesn't exist. And even if you talk about changes in the environment, why are people claiming that because we now know how things are changing because of mutation or whatnot, so therefore God doesn't exist? You see, every single thing that happens for a purpose. It doesn't happen randomly. Scientists are saying that when the earth formed about 4.6 billion years ago, it was like a molten hell. It was like basically everywhere you can see is everything is like red, everything is hot. There is like, you cannot imagine anything there. And what happened is suddenly meteorites start to like bombard upon the earth, the primitive earth. And water start to form. Water came from somewhere else. Where? We don't know. And for some reason, water has to come here. And then what happens is that you are saying that first cells, the signatures of the first cell you can find about 4 billion years, 4.4, or somewhere you can even find 3.5 billion years ago. Cells that are forming, bacteria that are forming, they're turning chemicals into energy. And then you can find other bacteria that can turn sunlight and carbon dioxide into oxygen. They can turn food from there, and also as a byproduct they release oxygen. And because of that, the earth was filled with oxygen. There was no oxygen in the earth, according to the scientists. But then because of those bacteria, it started to there's an increase in oxygen. And then suddenly there's a complexity in life. And for some reason, the mutation that you're saying, randomly happening mutation, that mutation is happening. And every single time the mutation is happening, it is in a way that life is becoming complex and life is becoming almost like nearing perfection. Why? And you were saying that happened randomly. Why does it have to be random? It doesn't have to be random. And it is certainly not random. Why? The reason is you are saying nature is doing that. You are basically saying, when I was studying biology in my university, they used to say nature magic. It is happening because of the magic of nature. It is happening naturally. When you don't have answer, you just say naturally. You see, right now the scientists are researching, trying to make a cell. They're trying to make a cell. And they're basically spending years after years of research, using millions of dollars worth of technology, instruments, and they still cannot make a life, not a single cell, with their brain, with so much technology, with so much advancement. And you're saying that in the primitive earth, the cell just happened because of chemical reactions, randomly. This is absurd. This is beyond absurdity. And even if you claim that, okay, first cell happening, okay, by God, but then everything happened by chance. No, nothing happens by chance. If you cannot answer the first cell question, if you cannot solve the first cell question, there is no point of other questions. You have to answer the beginning. And the beginning, what it makes sense is that God made the first cell. And God made it in a way that it will react to the environment. It will react to the changes, and it will change as well. But the change, the cell doesn't have control in the change. The mutations, it all happens because how God willed it. And that is what makes more sense.